Hi, Kesha. Thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Hi, yes. Thanks for inviting me on. This is exciting. So, I live here in Houston and I'm a big space advocate. I've been working with a political action committee founded by Linda LaRouche a long time ago. And what my commitment is, I've run for Congress. I have committed to educating the population on the importance of NASA and the importance of a vision for our nation. And I was very excited when President Trump announced the Artemis program and the commitment to return our nation to the moon. And I have been really educating people on what that means as a driver in great scientific and technological progress, and why it's imperative that that mission is accomplished. So I educate people, I write on space policy, the importance of the space program, and go out and talk to people. I do podcasts and talk about the importance of the relationship of what the space program has done in terms of its returns and paybacks to us here on Earth, including with the space station and all of the breakthroughs in medicine and scientific method that we've seen. So I'm very passionate about the space program and see the vital importance of what it offers to our society.
I think that's awesome. And, you know, I think that's a lot more challenging, or at least I appreciate the challenges that a lot more since starting this project than
Hmm.
I probably could have before. Because I've been down here in League City, right next to the Johnson Space Center, asking people at the mall on the streets, did you know that we're going back to the moon? And most often than not, I'm told, no, they didn't know. And this is, their proximity to NASA is like really, really strong. Um, I was wondering if you've ran into this yourself, that there's a big disconnect between what NASA is doing and what people know about it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you think about the fact that this weekend, on actually next Monday, the 12th, mix, uh, is the 60th anniversary of President John F. Kennedy's moon speech, which we call the Rice University speech, that at that time you had visionary leadership, and it was not the fact that it was obviously we were in confrontation, we had the Soviet conflict and so forth going on, but that he made it visionary as to the fact that everybody knew about it, the media was talking about it, everyone was, the school education system was committed to, this is the mission for the United States. Right now, I don't know if we are actually putting a focus on such a mission, and we need to return to that, because you're right, a lot of people, most people don't know that we have a commitment to return to the moon. And well, realistically, some people don't know if we can actually achieve that goal. And if we have the same willingness, as Kennedy said, we are uh, un- unwilling to that not accept such a challenge. That such a challenge has to be accepted and has to not be postponed. And I think we need to get back to that full commitment, that we're going to actually take on this challenge, and to make sure that this challenge will be accomplished, will be achieved, and nothing's going to hold us back. And people will be excited about that. People will be optimistic about the idea that we're actually returning the commitment to our nation to something great again. And I think about the fact that when this program, Artemis mission, was announced, it was at a time that we were talking about returning our nation to greatness. And I think that's what we really need to aspire to again.
Now, I think back in Kennedy's time, it was a little bit easier to focus the nation's attention on something. Back then, You only had like three major networks. Pretty much every city only had one or two newspapers, and there's only a handful of national periodicals. And if you had some news that was big enough to make it into all of these things, then pretty much everybody knew about it. But today, with the internet and the way that people get highly personalized news, even without them knowing it, they're kind of locked into this information bubble that's self-reinforcing about the things that they've previously looked at. And anything outside that bubble, they're completely unaware of.
Absolutely.
And and so this means that like your view of the world and my view of the world are probably 100% different because we're both being fed completely different information. And I was just wondering if you saw that same problem, and if what you think the implications of that could be in terms of reaching people and connecting with people.
Well, I think it starts with our education system. What are we actually aspiring our young people, inspiring our young people with? And this has to be the mission in terms of the entire community, with whether it's in the opportunities that we have with social media. If social media was being used for positive output, if we actually had leadership that was not focused on negativity in our society, which there's a lot of negativity, a lot of focusing on things in terms of what's being taught to our young people right now that is very grotesque, and that they're not being told, hey, it's time to look to the stars. It's time to think about how you're going to be making great discoveries to define your creative identity. And this is what the Artemis program could be. I mean, you think about it, when Kennedy gave his speech and he said that we are going to return, we're going to the moon in this decade, to not because it's easy, but because it's hard to the moon in this decade, to do the other things, that and the other things, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And then he says, and this goal will serve to measure the best of our energies and skills. And it's one that we are unwilling to postpone, one challenge. And so, but you think about that, and as I said before, we need that kind of visionary leadership again. And for the first time, we do have a commitment to return to the moon. Right now, let's be realistic. We know that we're facing major challenges with that, and those challenges can be overcome. We have some of the best scientists, engineers, and if the focus was put on making the breakthroughs that are needed and not what you said we're dealing with right now with the different media propaganda and various things that are unfortunately taking us in the wrong direction, and the leadership that's needed in terms of the quality that we saw in the previous administration, and the quality that we saw that, hey, it's been far too long, over 50 years since we last been back to the moon. But at the same time, we have all of these great companies that are, I was just reading today, as you know, we got to get the first mission off the ground and go back to the moon in terms of the unmanned mission, the test mission. But once we do that, and I think with the right leadership and energies in place, we're going to get that done. But if we're talking about, for the first time, we're talking about sending human beings, a man and a woman, back to the moon for the first time in almost 50 years. But we're not just going to the moon for a quick trip there and back and say, been there, done that. We're saying we're going to develop it because our eyes and our mission is to Mars. But people have to be excited about such a mission, and I think it's going to take a lot of work to inspire people and to get people a sense of that there's something greater for mankind to embark upon. And our nation really can lead that, the United States.
And it seems like a lot more commitment to space activities now than there has been in a long time. It's quite common for kind of space policy to change significantly as administrations change. And I think what we've seen here is that this is the one thing, or at least one of a few things, that has actually kind of stayed in place across
Yes.
administration changes. And I know that the current president has like a moon rock in the Oval Office to remind him of things that we once did. And I know that the vice president is going to the Johnson Space Center tomorrow to head up the National Space Council. So there's definitely seems to be commitment across both political parties to kind of see us continue our efforts to the moon. So I think that's something that we've not had for the previous turnovers, at least, where it just seems like it was constantly a shifting goal.
Mm. And when we think about the fact that we have the companies right now in terms of the commercial sector, the private sector, and I know that NASA has just announced that as far as achieving the goals for its Artemis 3 mission, that they have selected the Axiom Space to design their next spacesuit, which is going to be critical for life support systems on the moon when we actually return to the moon, to build base camps on the moon and for sustained presence on the moon, and utilizing the in situ resources. It's the fact that you have so many young people, universities, different groups that have gotten together and developed these projects around the CubeSat missions that are going to actually land on the moon and orbit around the moon and start to look at and measure water ice on the moon. So and to look at, well, where will be the best places for landing sites, for developing the resources on the moon, for fuel sources, because if we can use fuel sources from the moon to dig into the moon in terms of building out platforms there, then we'll actually develop the resources we need to move on to the next platform, which is developing cislunar space and getting to Mars and starting to develop the resources and colonize Mars. And you think about some of the work that Elon is doing and others are doing as well. And one of the biggest things that I've really been interested in is how we're going to get to Mars in terms of utilizing the resources of the moon, which, as people know, one of the greatest resources that was found in the Apollo program is helium-3, and along with other in situ resources on the moon. But I mean, this can be a great power source for launching into various areas of the solar system from the moon. So those are the things we need to talk about. And I think that needs to be the policy and commitment, and has been in the past. I've read numerous publications and books, and we've written numerous publications and books on commitment to nuclear fusion propulsion systems and actually advancing our commitment. And we did that. We actually had a great program that was being developed in the past with the Apollo program that got set back because of policy, bureaucracy, those who were not committed to such a visionary mission, who held it back. And today we have to make sure that people who have their policies set in the wrong direction are not able to hold us back again from achieving such a great mission. and we've seen it done previously. But I'm wanting to stay positive, and and I appreciate what you're doing, because I think that the fact that you have been educating people and speaking to many people, different backgrounds, on how do they feel about this mission to the moon and the Artemis program, because I think it's important that we identify the Artemis program as a great generational mission. And I remember when the former NASA administrator, Bridenstine, who hadn't been around like myself, and I believe you too,
Yeah.
around the Apollo missions, that mission and the leadership and the vision around it still inspires us to this day. But it's also unfortunate that we have had such a gap in terms of our return and commitment to the moon. And I think that now's the time. And I was reading something, I'll just tell you today, about a back in the 1980s, 1986, I believe it was, the National Space Commission had developed a 40-year, 50-year plan looking from 1985 to 2035. Where would we be in our pioneering of space exploration? And they said, well, think about all of the developments that we've made from 1935, and advancements in aerospace and in flight and so forth, and all that we've had accomplished and up to 1985, and think about where we need to be in terms of space exploration, full commitment to colonizing and developing the moon and on to Mars by 2035. And this is something that is really remarkable, because you say, well, where have we gone, or how far have we gotten to achieving that goal in terms of the breakthroughs in science and technologies? And so I think that we have a long way to go. We have a lot of work to do, but if we actually recommit ourselves, we can get the job done.
And I've talked to a lot of people. Some are really excited and see the moon as just a natural next step for humanity. And they see a future where humans are throughout the solar system, and maybe we've already started going to other stars. And there's other people who have a completely different reaction, and they're like, why are we sending people to the moon when we have all these problems here on Earth? And I think both of them have a point of sorts. And I was just wondering, how do you think and talk about sort of these two extremes?
Well, that's interesting, because I look at the space program as the greatest economic and scientific driver. And you think about, people talk about, for every dollar we spent on the space program, we got so much back in return. And what it does in terms of the contributions that it makes toward human progress here on Earth. Some of the developments in agriculture, in developments in medicine. I mean, I am very passionate about what we have already done with the developments that we've made in low Earth orbit, and advancements that's preparing human beings to go further out into the solar system, to the moon and Mars. But it's already some of the breakthroughs in medicine around Parkinson's disease, around dementia, looking at biophysics, various other breakthroughs that we've made in looking at the retina. So people might say, well, how does this relate to me? But how it relates is that you actually have to have advanced manufacturing. You have to have industry, productive economy here on Earth to be able to get the job done. I mean, right now we're dealing with challenges with the Artemis mission. We know that. We heard about the hydrogen leaks and so forth. But how do we actually overcome these challenges to actually be able to solve these problems? That's what we have to figure out, because we're not just sort of snapping our fingers and, hey, we're in the moon, we're at the moon already. It takes an organized society. And I think that that is what we have to give people a sense of, that this will have a tremendous effect on transforming our society, ending poverty, retooling our industries. You'll have the best skills and that skilled laborers and resources for our society in every single field. And not only that, but the education of our young people will be completely transformed, because people talk about STEM programs, but you actually have to have a mission. You can't just say, oh, you should be excited about math and science. You actually have to, people who were, when Kennedy announced the Apollo program, people said, I want to be a part of that. I'm going to go and study engineering, math, science. And there was all kinds of great projects that were done, university projects. I mean, obviously, we know Rice University had a big project all around, and that's still prevalent to today. And we have to return to that mission. But I think that's the way that you're going to get people excited about it, and understanding the relationship to economic, technological, scientific progress. The driver for it has to be a commitment to space exploration.
So assuming we make that commitment and just kind of looking out into the future, like 100, 200 years, what do you think society looks like 200 years from now?
Oh, that's exciting. Well, if we have the right leadership in place, and as said, if we make a total transformation and fully fulfill our commitment to that extraterrestrial imperative of mankind, that's what I like to call it, a visionary leadership, a leader by the name of Kraft Erica, who I love his writings and works, and have come across him through association. And what I think that we will see is something very beautiful and powerful. The idea that we could actually have cities on Mars, cities on the moon and Mars. We could see actual transport between these two bodies. And obviously, we will start to develop the Mars's moons, Phobos, and we will start to develop the resources on Mars in terms of growing hydroponic or systems of agricultural systems, that we will start to be able to, we will see that this idea that there's limits to growth, or there's limited resources, and there's some people push the idea or may believe that there are too many people and we don't have enough resources for all of the people. That will come to an end, because once we get out there and we actually say that we are not in a closed world system, the whole of the solar system is open to us, and we can go and utilize the resources and develop these resources. I think we're going to see a whole different humanity 200 years from now, and that we will have advanced far beyond anything that we can imagine today.
That is exciting. Talking about exciting, would you take a trip to space if you could?
Hmm. Well, I think I would like that. To be honest, I always tell people I'm the person who wants to make sure that others pave the way for others. So, but but Then if someone were to ask me if I would want to go, I think I would take up that offer.
And how long in the future do you think it is before people like you and me get to take trips like that to space?
Oh, I think very soon. Um, I obviously right now we have, you see the private space flights and so forth that have gone to the International Space Station, and but you know, in terms of having just the ordinary population go, I think it won't be long from now, because once we achieve this goal in terms of getting human beings back to the moon, and that's the goal we have to achieve. We cannot postpone, as Kennedy said. That opens up the door for so much more, and I think that will definitely open up, because we'll need, from what we're going to have with low Earth orbit, development of new space stations in low Earth orbit, that it will, if we have the right economic policies in place, it will be made available and open to so many more people in terms of new science that will go into space as well.
Now, Elon Musk has been talking about having a million person city on Mars by 2050.
Uh-huh.
If such a city gets started and they open it up for anybody to come to, uh, do you think you would be tempted to actually go and be a colonist on Mars?
Yeah, I think that sounds great. Now, I'd want to get there faster than, the the period that it takes to get to Mars right now. So we may have to work on those chemical rockets and, go with something a little bit more energy dense there, because we don't have time to waste. so so I think we got to get there faster, and we got to develop the propulsion and the rocket systems that's going to get us there, human beings there safely. But I think that that vision, because you are going to need a lot of people, you can't just send a few people to Mars and expect to develop and uh, colonize and it in the most efficient way, should we say? So I think a lot of people are excited about that idea. That should be our mission, as I said. That is our extraterrestrial imperative. That we should be having cities on Mars, and those designs of cities should be open to whole new cultural explorations as well. We're going to have music programs, classical programs on Mars. We're going to have very well organized systems in terms of transport systems and work environments. I think it's going to be extremely exciting. So yes, I think everyone should be excited about getting there, but I want to get there in whole. I don't want to get there as a blob, so we can't take months to get there.
Well, let's say you do, or maybe one of your descendants immigrates to Mars, and it's 200 years in the future, and it's your great, 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 I'm not sure how many greats it takes to get to 200 years, granddaughter's on Mars. She's in high school, she's in history class, and for some reason, they're doing some project on the 2020s. What do you think happens in this decade that's worth remembering and writing about in a high school paper 200 years from
Oh, wow. Well, we will have already accomplished systems 200 years from now in 2020. I think, well, 2020, we're talking about 2022, right?
now? Yeah, so we're talking about 22, looking back at the 2020s.
22, looking back. Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, I I think that they're going to say, "Wow, we did something spectacular. And as a matter of fact, that we would have already started to develop and have accomplished colonies or base camps on the moon, that we would have exploration, rapid exploration back and forth from Earth to moon and onto Mars, and that they will be a part of that, and that they will probably be living and working and actually writing their paper as they're traveling on advanced spacecraft to Mars themselves. So I think that they won't be just writing about it from a classroom here on Earth, but they will be saying, because of the commitment and vision of those in 2022, we're here today.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is going to be a pivotal decade. But one kind of experimental question worth asking is, if we look back 200 years from now to the 1820s, is there anything around that period that really stands out as something that we know about?
Well, I think, you think about at that time we were just starting to develop, not long after the Industrial Revolution. You had advances in space flight that happened right around the just a little later, and I think that we definitely saw a transformation in terms of where we were, and the fact that you had very little technological advancements, but then at such a rapid pace, those advancements started to flourish. And we know we broke the sound barrier later. We had advancements in space flight, and then in rocketry later. And so I think that that's something that we can look back on in terms of how rapid those advancements took place.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to think about those advancements and how much has changed, right? Because it doesn't seem to be purely a function of time. I've heard some historians comment that over the course of the 1,000-year Roman Empire, you could take legions from the beginning of that 1,000 years and put them in legions at the end of that 1,000 years, and they would be able to get along just fine because the technology really had not developed that much. But then over the past 100 years, it's just been astounding. I mean, we developed nuclear energy, we developed the computer, we developed supersonic, flying, satellites. We've sent probes throughout the solar system. And previously, we hadn't done anything. We didn't even know it was possible. We didn't even think about it. And so this innovation that we've seen is, historically kind of unique to this recent period. And I guess, there's no guarantee that would continue. Like, what causes it? And is there any risk of it not continuing?
Well, I think the question of innovation comes out of a truly creative process. I mean, there's a lot of people who innovate new ideas, new products, and those products can be, as we see with the reports that come off on the spin-offs that come out of the space program. And those spin-offs coming out of the space program is because a human mind actually came up with an idea, and that idea was advanced. And so I think if we continue to encourage that process of creativity, and that we give a body, if you will, to that development of that innovation, and make it as part of a mission, and then I think you're going to see more innovation. People will be inspired, but it also takes a social process that once something is innovated, then you actually have to have a medium to which to develop or to foster that idea, that new discovery. If somebody makes a discovery, then how is it going to be utilized? So I think that's extremely important. And right now, at this period in our history, we need a lot of innovation. And if we think there's so much going on right now, I told some friends of mine, what if we actually had, as they did in the centennial of the founding of our nation, where with Lincoln and in our republic, you actually had a a what you would call a science fair today, maybe a convention of inventors, and everybody would just be able to come out and see what has been developed. Sometimes I'm amazed by how much is being developed and discovered, and most people don't know about it because it's sort of hidden to the public. But if we had a national convention or a invention convention as we did during the centennial, that just imagine what this will inspire in terms of putting the whole of all of the great discoveries and creative process out there for the world to see, as happened uh, in the formation and in the aftermath of our nation. I think that that would be extremely important, but we have to make it available for all to take from.
I like that invention convention. I mean, it reminds me of conjunction junction or something from Schoolhouse Rock, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we need something like that for sure. There's just so much going on right now that has to be uh, explored.
It definitely. Well, Kesha, I really appreciate your time. I see this as a time capsule for generations yet unborn to kind of
Yes.
look back and try to understand what I think is going to be a pivotal decade, this decade, through the lenses of, you know, over 1,000 different perspectives, to kind of give them some idea. I know we covered a lot of it, but is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get a chance to?
I think that we really, as I said before, just have to continue to inspire the next generation of leaders to this renewed mission, and that we have to ensure that we have a commitment, once again, the leadership in place that is saying the next generation of our young people for the next, how are we thinking about the next 50 years? So not just how are we going to get out of crisis that we're facing today in this moment in time and be able to survive, but we have to think about the next 2 generations ahead. What is that going to look like? What is going to be our vision for pioneering space, pioneering leadership, and pioneering the next generation of great discoverers and creative minds? And I think that the Artemis mission, with everything that we see going on right now, with the crisis in the drug epidemic that we're seeing, we're losing too many of our young people, those who can foster brilliant and beautiful discoveries for mankind. We might see the next person to solve another cure, a cure for cancer, or next person to figure out how to develop systems for agricultural systems where there's no hunger or anything. But if the value of life is being destroyed, and we are not committing ourselves to the growth and development of our young people, then we have a problem. And so the Artemis mission has to be looked at that. It's not just how do we get this one part of it done and the next part of it, but we actually have to say we're recommitting ourselves to a total vision for humanity. And the US is going to lead the way in that vision with profound new breakthroughs and new discoveries. So that's what I hope for, and that's what I commit to, not just waiting to see it that it's going to happen, but putting the right perspective policies in place and educating people on what we could be doing if we had a positive idea about the future in place.
I totally agree, and I hope that happens, and I really appreciate your efforts for trying to make it happen. So
Thank you. Thank you for all you're doing as well. And exciting new work that you're doing. Good work. Good luck.
thank you so much, and Kesha, well, I hope you have a good rest of your night, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Yes, yes. Let's do so. Thank you. Take
Okay,
care.
bye bye.
Bye-bye.